The European movement has a very proud record in promoting European unity. In our country, it's been responsible for changing public opinion to the point that we were able to enter the EEC in the 1970s, and then mobilising that opinion to keep us in the 1975 referendum, when I first got involved when I worked for the Keep Britain in Europe campaign. Subsequently, it's done much good work, particularly in promoting the idea of the single market, and in the last referendum, in doing its utmost to mobilise public opinion to keep us in the EU. We have to face up to the fact that the consequences of Brexit, both for our country but also for the EM as a movement, are very considerable. We only have to look at what's happened and is happening to our economy with the increasing difficulties for many businesses in doing trade with the European Union to see how catastrophic the results of the Brexit referendum and our exit are being. The problems also extend culturally and politically. And perhaps most worrying of all when we look at the political consequences are that firstly, it threatens the breakup of our country as a result of Brexit, a reckless outcome which was long predicted and ignored by those who promoted Brexit. And it's driving a further wedge between ourselves and our closest European neighbours and partners, on whom we are in fact reliant for our future well-being and security. We only have to look at what's happened over the Northern Ireland Protocol and the issue of the vaccines and the souring of relations that can so easily happen when the solidarity that the European Union brought about disappears, to see that far from Brexit being done, we are in the middle of a really disturbed period in our national and international politics, in which our relationship with the continent to which we form effectively a part is being called into question as to how it is going to operate in future. That's the extent of the challenge that's facing us. And so the question, as we look at those challenges, is to identify what are the key issues which we as a movement now need to address if we're going to keep ourselves relevant. And it seems to me that there are three of them. The first one is how can we promote in future a significant change in public opinion about our relations with our European neighbours, such that not only can we mobilise grassroots, but we can also have a profound effect on the views of the political parties, which we have to influence as a movement, because we're a movement and not ourselves a political party. Secondly, what can we do in the context of Europe itself to persuade our European partners who are members of the European Union or aspiring members of the European Union that the United Kingdom is relevant to their future, and that as a consequence they should look benevolently on the attempts that we are making to re-engage, because otherwise there must be a very real risk that in fact the gulf is going to widen further. And thirdly, how can we support and provide a good environment for those many thousands of supporters who have put their trust in us, have worked hard, are deeply disappointed as to what's happened as a result of the 2016 referendum, and feel understandably very angry and upset and concerned about the future. Because without them, we will not be able to operate as an organisation at all, and they've put their faith in us to do something about it. But at the same time, as we have to respond to their concerns, we have to make sure that we are going on to fight new battles and not just trying to refight old ones. And that we all have to face up to the reality that we have left the European Union, and much as we would all like to wake up tomorrow morning and think it's a bad dream and go straight back in, that's not going to happen, even if there were a government in power at Westminster that was prepared to contemplate such a course of action. Now, for me, those are the key challenges. And so the next question is how I would try to go about and address those were I to become the chair of the European movement. Firstly, I would want to consult with all of you on the council as to how you feel we should best go forward. But in doing that, it would be quite wrong of me to suggest that I don't have some of my own ideas. But of course, those need to be moderated by yours and indeed the sensible challenges and moderation that take place within any organisation which is working and functioning properly. I think the first thing I would want to do is to try to identify those issues where we as a movement can argue pragmatically, even in the context of being outside of the EU, that change is absolutely required now and in the near future and can be achieved so as to improve our interaction with our European partners. Two spring to mind immediately. The first is Erasmus, where the government has ratted on its previous promises that it would keep us in the project, and as a consequence is going to do real damage to our ability to foster that cultural sense of Europeanism, which we think is so important, both by receiving European students here and enabling British students to go and study within the EU. Many who are supporters of the government are very embarrassed by what it's done on this. So I happen to think that we've got something of an open door that we can push at to mount a campaign. The second one, which is readily identifiable, is that the government turned down the opportunity when it was negotiating with the European Union to get 90-day visa-free travel for work into the EU and vice versa for certain professionals, particularly those in the performing arts. That too seems to me to be a priority because it is quite needlessly endangering the lives and livelihoods of many in our country, and moreover, it is a form of precisely cultural interaction and promotion which is so valuable for our common future. The second issue, which is going to require a lot more work, but which I think is something that I can particularly offer within the EM, is that we have got to rebuild our links with the main political parties. Of course, the EM remains linked to all of them and willing to engage with all mainstream political parties to try and achieve a better future. But we have to recognise that with both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, those links are now quite tenuous, and those are, in the foreseeable future, the only two political parties likely to form a government at Westminster. Other political parties may be better disposed towards us, but then there again, it raises the challenge that as we embark on a period of constitutional crisis about the future of the United Kingdom, some of the unity that exists of purpose even there on Europe may start to be split up by differences of view as to whether the United Kingdom should stay together or break up. These are significant issues. My first task is to want to try to rebuild those links, informal links, with the political parties, because my own experience is that there are plenty of MPs in all the political parties, including the Conservative Party, who are well disposed to our aims, as long as they feel that we are not becoming so ideologically fixated on the demand to go back into the European Union immediately that it makes it impossible for them to cooperate and participate with us. This is something which can be done over the coming 12 months, and where I think I have the necessary introductions to be able to carry that out. We're going to have to be very sensitive to those political and constitutional problems which are likely to come down the track. That's going to require quite a delicate balancing act to make sure that people with differing views can still network and engage with us. And there again, many of the contacts which I succeeded in making during the course of my last period in Parliament, I think may be of advantage in doing that. And we need to build links to within the European Union and its institutions as well. That's going to require some hard work and travel, but I'm committed to doing it. If we can do those things, then I think in the course of the next 12 months, we can take the European movement forward in a positive way. We're going to have to be very nimble of foot and responsive to the events around us. But we have one clear advantage. Europe is not going away. It is there. It's on our doorstep. It's our future. And if we're prepared to work hard, I'm convinced that we can restore some of our country's credibility within the European context and lay the foundations for a better future much closer to our European partners than the direction of travel we have at the moment. So far as I'm concerned personally, I'm at a stage of my life where, although I've gone into practice as a barrister, I don't need to work full-time. As a consequence, I have the time available to do this work, and were you to wish to have me as the chair of the European movement, I would be willing and able to commit a significant amount of my time to trying to make it work successfully. For me, personally, it's something that matters a lot. It's a legacy which I wish to leave my sons and wish to ensure that future generations can enjoy some of the benefits that those who created the European movement offered to me during my lifetime. I have a bit of a sense of shame that my generation has allowed this to go by the board in the way that has happened. But we should not despair. We have a lot to offer as a country. We have a lot to offer us as a movement. And if we can work together, then I'm confident that we can do some good things. Thank you.